Yes, 2-5 is here. Sports Reports Authority. Welcome to 2-5 Daily. Grab your liquid death, y'all. Let's do it. So I was sitting around today, as I was having my daily thought, and I was trying to think, what am I going to talk about today? Obviously there's the Wizards trade, but I don't think anybody really cares about that outside of me as a Wizards fan and clearing up that cap space for next year. But, it made me think of another team in the East, with all the things going on in the East, Jason Tatum out, Tyrese Halliburton out, then of course, Dame Lillard. But that's where I stopped, the Milwaukee Bucks. So, coming into this season, this offseason, there was a lot of questions in the air. I remember I did a video about a year and a half ago saying that the Bucks should trade Giannis. As you can imagine, people didn't appreciate that. But my thought behind it is these NBA teams always wait to the nth hour to trade these players that either want out or are on different timelines. Now, I understand that Giannis is the face of your team. He's the face of your franchise, probably the best player in your history, not named Lou Alcindor. And you could even argue accomplishment wise, Giannis might have cleared him already, as far as playing for the Bucks only. Let's not get crazy. But I was coming into the offseason and I was saying, okay, Houston has to make this move, but they opted for Kevin Durant, right? That doesn't mean that they can't get Giannis still, because they didn't give up Jabari Smith, Fred Van Vliet, and some other pieces, Cam Whitmore's of the world, that they could still move for a Giannis. But now the question bears itself with the East in the state of flux that it's in. Should Milwaukee consider keeping Giannis, or should Giannis want to stay? Now, I know that there's been reports saying that he's not going to ask out this year, but you never know how that works, especially they don't have a first round pick in the draft this year. Their only pick is number 47. So good luck there. But when I go back and look at it, how did we get here? So it's not just Dame Lillard's injury. There's a lot of decisions that leave a lot to be desired that the Bucks have made over the last few years. Like, for example, holding on to old man Lopez. He's 37 now. He's a free agent, so let him walk. There's no need to play this game, right? You already let Chris Middleton, you traded him. No need to play this game. So when I look at the Bucks roster, it's not devoid of talent. It's just not necessarily top end talent. But for next season, do you need top end talent? Like I mentioned, the injuries already. Drew Holiday's even gone now. So yeah, Boston got Anthony Simons who can score. I like that pickup a lot, but I like it better once Jason Tatum gets back, right? So just looking at this from a logical standpoint, they drafted AJ Johnson last year out of Australia. His whole 2 points a game, but jumping potential. But then they traded him with Middleton to get Kyle Kuzma, who, when you really look at it, who would have thought that Kyle Kuzma fit on that roster? Not saying that he's a chucker per se, but he hasn't met a shot that he doesn't want to take. But that doesn't work when you got somebody like Giannis. The shots have to be structured because of the defense collapsing on Giannis. You need to be able to knock it down. So that's why Milwaukee needs to first and foremost re-sign Gary Trent Jr., 41.6 from three. Taurean Prince, third in the league this year, 43% from three, right? Start there. Put shooters around your guy. Like, you got to treat this LeBron style. We always talk about the Channing Frys and the Iman Shumperts and all J.R. Smiths, these people that came out of nowhere, but they provided a very specific need to the Cavaliers. So I think Milwaukee needs to start there with those two. Bobby Portis has his player option. I was trying to think. So if you're Giannis, do you give Milwaukee a 1-year trial run? Because he's still young, 30, 31. He's still fairly young. He still has, 4 to 5 top years left, if not maybe a little bit more, just depending on play style, right? Because he goes hard in the paint. He He's always running, he's always jumping, he's doing a lot of effort. So I don't know how long that prime will last, but he's still in it right now. So do you give Milwaukee a year and say, show me what you can do? Because the problem is they owe Dame Lillard 54 million this year, 62 the year after. And he's going to be coming off an ACL the year after. So if you're Milwaukee, right? Do you just try to bubble gum a team together this year and pray for the best? You got free agents out there like D'Angelo Russell, Davion Mitchell, little feisty defender. But I was thinking maybe trades could be involved. Like, is this where you go to Utah and go get a Colin Sexton? Is this where you call New Orleans now that they have Jordan Poole? Do you call New Orleans and say, hey, are you willing to budge on DeJounte Murray? And now you got someone that can penetrate the defense and get the ball out of Giannis's hands so much. So if you're Giannis, you're looking around the East and it's like, okay, Orlando just went and got Desmond Bane. Am I scared of them? I still don't know how many points they're going to put up. You look at Cleveland, if they don't move Darius Garland, that backcourt is just too small that with a guy like Giannis, I feel like I like my chances against that team. Not saying that you should walk into the series and feel like you should be the favorite just because they're short. You know what I mean? But what's Jared Allen's status? They're already talking about moving off of Okoro. So Cleveland's not going to look the same either. Then, you got Detroit, who has been allegedly in the talks to get Miles Turner because he's a free agent this year, which makes Indiana even weaker than they already would be without Halliburton. So what's the play? Is it we're just going to let the chips fall where they may? We're just going to play this out? Or is it, hey, Giannis, we still may need to move you? So I think that this is another story of an NBA team holding on to a player a year or two too long instead of too soon. Like, I subscribe to that Bill Belichick philosophy. I'm going to get rid of you while you still have the most value that you could have. So if I'm Milwaukee, that's still on the table. We just got to find somewhere for you to go. So where could that be? I doubt that Milwaukee would want to trade him to the East. You know what I mean? Does Phoenix try to get involved? Because Phoenix is not in a position to tank right now. They don't have any picks. So they could lose all they want, but they're not going to get anything from it but upset fans. So I'm looking west if I'm Milwaukee to try to find a partner and say, you know what? Look, the roster just isn't here for you to do what you deem necessary. My guy, Andre Jackson's still only getting about 14 minutes a game. Doc Rivers, play my guy. Kevin Porter came on at the end of the year this year. That was cool. But how far is that going to get you? So if your thought is you got the Knicks and the Cavs and then nothing else in between, why not give it a shot? You could always move them at the trade deadline.